With the demands placed on enterprise IT escalating at a fever pitch, CIOs and business leaders have had to look for solutions to manage demand and drive efficiencies in their technology operations. One solution that's been gaining quite a bit of traction of late is to offload some of the more mundane IT functions to managed service providers, or MSPs. Organizations are finding that IT duties such as managing customer relationship management applications, email hosting, and even network monitoring can be handled with better reliability, efficiency, and at a lower cost by MSPs. This frees enterprise IT personnel from routine day-to-day assignments and allows more time and manpower to be dedicated to critical projects that support business innovation and growth. In this report, we'll take a close look at the evolution and rise of the managed service provider. By watching this program, IT and business leaders will gain insight into the impact MSPs can have on their business and enterprise IT operations. This program features expert David Leech, Vice President of Professional and Managed Services for Logicalis US. Logicalis is an international IT solutions and managed services provider with knowledge and expertise in communications, collaboration, data center, cloud services, and managed services. There are several teaching points in this program. First, we'll discuss the evolution of managed services. We'll also hear about emerging trends in managed services today. Next, we'll explore the impact MSPs can have on enterprise IT. We'll also review the key challenges IT organizations may face when moving toward a managed services environment. Then, several best practices for organizations to follow when working with an MSP. Finally, we'll conclude with some added thoughts and advice from our expert. Now, let's begin our report. Let's explore the managed services landscape. We'll also hear about emerging trends in managed services today. As we discussed in the opening of our report, today more and more enterprises are relying on managed service providers, or MSPs, to help meet their computing needs and requirements. In fact, in a survey of 350 businesses and IT professionals by the Computing Technology Industry Association, also known as CompTIA, it was noted that 2/3 of the group used the services of an MSP within the past 12 months. Some other interesting trends from the survey are as follows. Half the survey respondents claimed to be very familiar with the managed services model. 40% said they were only somewhat familiar. Of the 350 CompTIA survey participants, 6 in 10 described their managed services engagement as a collaborative arrangement with their internal IT department. In other words, companies are not getting rid of their in-house IT and replacing it with MSPs. They're simply partnering with them for a suite of services. The survey also found that managed services customers are looking for benefits beyond cost savings. They are seeking to become a more efficient and competitive organization as a result of the MSP relationship. Clearly, the stage has been set, and it's only a matter of time before more organizations fully embrace the managed services computing model. Now, let's turn to our expert, David Leech from Logicalis US, and learn more about the rising trends in the adoption of managed services. David, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you ever so much for having me come down, Mike.
Well, David, we've all witnessed the amazing technological advances that have fueled a real evolution in global computing over the past decade. Our topic today, managed services, has followed an evolutionary path as well. Tell us how managed services has evolved over the years.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly a great question. I mean, there are various different lenses to look at this through. And I think really managed services has come out of the whole outsourcing boom, which itself, went through that whole sort of piece with huge monolithic outsourcing with, dare I say it, the HPs and the EDSs and the IBMs, where they would rip and replace everything. And really that's now transformed through various stages. And we're really in the third generation, which aligns with the whole sort of cloud and third platform generation. And so really when I look at managed services now today, it's about providing support and services in a particular technology space, really to help internal IT departments from an IT managed services lens, deliver value to their customers.
And what types of computing services are available as a managed service?
Yeah, I mean, I'll narrow down here into the IT space, because managed services you can take right the way across the whole business outsourcing area as well. But within the managed services in the IT area, I think really it's almost anything It can range from a service desk for end user support, around management of laptops, right the way through into the data center. And in the data center then, management of both the network, the hardware, the compute, the storage, right the way through then into application support of very sort of niche application areas. The big one that's out there at the moment really is the whole security space with managed security support, providing sort of spot solutions where a local IT department just don't have the skills or they don't have the time to be able to focus.
So, David, from your perspective, tell us why organizations need MSPs.
Well, clearly, very large organizations that have large budgets could choose to do everything themselves. My experience is that certainly in the medium-size space, small, medium-size, they just don't have enough time and focus to be able to invest. And so managed services can be used as a real good business benefit by coming in and providing part of the delivery, allowing the local IT department staff then to focus on really empowering the business and driving the agility and the time to market. Whether or not that's for business-to-business applications or actually customer-facing applications, really to drive top-line growth for their own enterprises.
David, CIOs and IT leaders are struggling to align IT initiatives with business priorities. Can MSPs help with that effort?
Yeah, I think, Mike, as I said earlier on, one of the areas that managed services can do is it can take a niche part and then free up the local internal IT team to actually then add value elsewhere within the business. That allows those individuals to get out from underneath the weight of just keeping the lights on and really get alongside their business partners to understand where they can use IT to innovate, to provide insight into the business and drive actual business profitability. The other space there is really providing services that can be consumed in a very transparent way. I think we all know from the rise of Amazon and online shopping that the experience has changed. The consumer now is looking for visibility into the whole delivery of the IT ecosystem. So from the moment that a service is ordered, right the way through to when it is delivered. So managed services has got a powerful place to play in terms of actually enabling the back end by providing the process and the rigor, the visibility and the accountability so that the end users of the services are really seeing something more like they're accustomed to see at home than they've perhaps historically seen in the enterprise.
And what are the latest trends emerging in managed services today?
I think really what's going on in the industry at the moment is everybody's in this cloud platform phase, and if they're not going out into public cloud, they're really looking for agile ways of operating within their own business. So the key element that's happening at the moment is providing a technology support across cloud delivery models, helping companies stitch together their IT framework from both on-premise into the off-premise space. And really that's the key here is, in terms of finding a solution provider that can actually help you with that journey to drive the ever-increasing pace of change as people adopt, as I said, that cloud, social, analytic, big data, third platform push.
Next, we'll discuss the impact of MSPs on enterprise IT. We'll also review the key challenges IT organizations may face when moving toward a managed services environment. In addition, we'll offer several best practices for organizations working with service providers. A successful relationship with a managed service provider always begins with a well-thought-out service-level agreement. These agreements are obviously important to the MSP, but they are good for the customer as well. In fact, the folks at IT content provider TechTarget have identified how a well-crafted service agreement can benefit an MSP customer. According to the TechTarget article, overall, the managed services agreement provides the customer with the comfort level required to engage with the solution provider through documentation of the deliverable as well as the SLA. In addition, the agreement documents in a clear and easy-to-understand manner the service provider's services and how they are delivered. Additionally, TechTarget tells us that a well-designed service agreement will document each party's responsibilities, establish the entire service agreement between the parties, protect both parties, set appropriate expectations, ensure profitability for the service provider, provide the client with an SLA for services, and become an instrument by which to measure performance and customer satisfaction. Organizations that are renewing agreements or starting up a new relationship with an MSP should be sure their SLAs are addressing the key areas mentioned in the Tech Target article. Now, let's return to our guest expert, David Leech, and continue our discussion on managed services. David, I'm sure there are reservations that organizations have when it comes to working with MSPs. What are the typical issues that you've run into?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's at various different levels in the organisation. There are different concerns. At the CIO and the leadership level, it's hey, I'm giving away access to my crown jewels. From a security perspective, it's about worrying about lack of control. It's worrying about that old monolithic, first generation outsourcing paradigm where it's rip and replace and you're locked in for 5 years. So those are the sorts of things that you see at the at the executive level, and then at the working level, it's really about job security. Oh my goodness, my job is going away, and then not understanding what the true aim is of many of these transformational agendas that are in flight.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how working with an MSP impacts the IT department. Does it diminish the role of IT at all?
So, just going back, Mike, onto that last question you asked around, the kind of the fear component. If the IT departments don't reinvent and move the staff into more business-facing, more application-centric, more vendor management roles, then yes, I do see the role of the individuals in the IT department declining in their relevance. But where we've got customers that have reinvented those departments, freed up the time, got more visibility into how the services are being delivered, they're actually getting greater visibility because they're actually in there in those board meetings, in the product development sessions, actually helping their business colleagues innovate and drive growth.
So it's more of a changing role, not a diminished role.
Absolutely. And what's key during that change is a true partnership. If that partnership isn't there, where there's give and take, push and pull, the value that these transformational agendas have got really just doesn't get delivered. It is a real item to be managed through taking on managed services.
Now, David, for organizations considering managed services, what should they be looking for in a service provider?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, a couple of things there that we talked about a little earlier on. The first of them is, the construct needs to be flexible and meet the needs of the individual company. So, just like entering into a marriage, be aware of the divorce. Be aware of how you actually are going to step out of this at some point in the future. I mean, just like you would do with any vendor selection, you need to know what your appetite is for lock-in. That's my number one advice. Number two is, for this to be effective, it needs to be a partnership. So there needs to be a cultural fit between the vendor and the IT department, or the purchasing arm, if I can put it that way. And so it's critical that they spend time actually getting to know each other, knowing that they've got access into the right parts of the organization, getting a feel for just how transparent the managed service vendor is going to be, and also, probably more importantly, how that vendor is going to react when things don't quite go as planned. Because we all know that these journeys take unexpected twists, and the quality in the partnership really comes out of being able to engage at the right level, get the right governance program in place to drive that partnership.
Well, I've read that it's critical for the CIO and IT to foster good communication within the organization about the move to a service provider model. Could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, clearly that depends on the size of the engagement that is being brought together here. I think, if you're looking at a large scale, business application, a CRM, or Salesforce type item, then pretty clearly there's an element of having everybody at the table who is stacking hands and is part of that. And really, that's about shaping the value equation. That is the reason for doing the transaction, doing the transformational piece. And perhaps in a slightly smaller sort of scale, if you're going to do a Microsoft or another vendor for your email through Office 365, there's probably also a need to bring them in because they're going to be impacted by the actual the change. So they need to feel comfortable as well that the partner has the skills and the wherewithal to pull this off.
Well, David, I'm sure moving to a managed services environment has its challenges. Tell us what organizations typically experience.
The largest hurdle is actually the people component. So the various teams really need to focus on the people piece, so have a real good, strong view around the impact of your decisions on your own people. Ideally, you would have some form of career path and coaching path already in place as part of that transformation. So you can explain to the team what their role is going to be in 6 months, 12 months, a year's time. Be very open about that, be inclusive of that so that people get onto the right career paths, and really then sort of work out the training that is needed to get from the start point to the end point. So to me, that's the number one part. The other part of this is then just a very clear transition or transformational roadmap in terms of the project plan. Ensure that is well vetted and that all parties have bought into that. Just going back to the governance piece, that has got the right sort of visibility, the right checkpoints to ensure that there are proper no-go decisions at the relevant cutover points. And then finally, just like any good project management piece, make sure that there's a value realization stream to that project to ensure that the business case is satisfied as part of that transition approach. So I don't know if that answers the question, Mike, but those are kind of the key bits that come to my mind.
Well, the best way to work through those challenges sounds like good communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't say anything more than that. A really solid, sort of tiered governance structure, with daily or at least weekly calls at the lower level, perhaps bi-monthly at the upper level, and depending on how complex it is, you might need those executive members from the finance department in your strategic steering group, perhaps once a quarter or once a month during the transition phase, and that's important that isn't just a one-way communication from your vendor. If you're the actual purchasing body, you need to be pretty much on the ball. You need to be bringing items to the table, to ensure that the vendor is playing honest and knows what's going on in your own company. It helps everybody manage the delivery, so the business gets a benefit and IT gets a benefit because it's just more predictable, and it's flowing better, so it's less firefighting. And then from the business side, then that reinvestment then can allow the next stage of evolution in products and really drive the business profitability and innovation to drive out into new areas.
Well, David, you have sold me on managed services. How can my organization get started? Take me through the steps.
Yeah, sure. So I think probably if I can do, Mike, before implementation, you've actually got to go and source some vendors out there. So what I would say is start out with what I would refer to as a view of your service map. So which components of your delivery do you want to go out and outsource? Once you've got that and you can understand that in terms of is it the service desk, is it security at the other end, or any part in between, then go out and engage with a number of vendors. Test them out. Don't give them a really prescriptive RFP, because if you do that, you will get back the answer that you're expecting. Test them out with this is the business problem I'm trying to solve, and then look for what they're going to come back through that response cycle to help you shape the services that you wish to consume. Pretty clearly, there are many third-party groups out there, and I'm not going to mention them here, but there's big flag name and smaller groups out there who can actually help smaller entities make those decisions. For me, once you've got through that paperwork piece, you've got to know the group. Pick a company that can transform with you. Not a company that is just going to say, here you go, that's it. You've got to stick with that for the next 3 years. So you probably want a company that's got an ability to help you transform, perhaps a company that can help you place workload into cloud and onto social media, and then also then consume from them their managed services piece. I don't know if that answers it in enough detail. Clearly, it's a big, complex topic to get through in a couple of minutes.
David, do you have any data on cost and ROI in regard to MSPs that you could share?
Clearly, the offshoring play is a pure labour arbitrage play. In that space, you can go and do that. You lock yourself in for 3 years, and you can probably achieve 10, 20, or possibly even 30% savings. The reality is that we're seeing people pull back from those offshore delivery models to gain the intimacy of onshore and the flexibility to drive that whole cloud agenda. So we're actually not seeing people taking this money to the bottom line. If they manage to pull 10, 15, 20% of cost savings, they're actually reinvesting it almost immediately. So it's really about a reinvestment play in terms of where we're seeing businesses that are growing.
Can you offer an example of an organization that has really benefited from making the move to a managed services environment?
Many startups just choose not to build their own IT department. We've got one particular one in the reinsurance business that we've grown from, I think they had a staff of about 20 when they started 15 years ago. I think they're now somewhere around about 800, 900 staff members, and they're into the billion revenue space. And their IT department consists of 4 people. The CIO plus a couple of individuals that help us, our go-to people, for direction. And what greater messages are there than that sort of dynamic growth over that period of time? I can then take sort of other examples where we started out providing them with perhaps service desk end user support during the weekends, and I've now got 20 or 30 agents dedicated to supporting them 24/7 for all of their end user and desktop support. So 2 sort of very different ends of the spectrum in terms of how our flexible services can be bolted together and grow as client needs and appetite grows.
Okay, David, please recap some of your advice today in the form of several best practices for organizations embracing managed services as an enterprise computing solution.
Yeah, sure, Mike. Clearly there's multiple parts to this. The first part is organizations have got to get to a service mentality. We talk about a service-defined enterprise where we look at how we deliver things as a black box. So a service is nothing but an input and an output. And until you can actually define things as services, you really can't get to that consumerization of IT vision where you can see what is going on, because there's just too much detail. So you've got to build that abstraction layer. So that's the first bit, is get a service-defined view of what you're going to deliver to your internal consumers. The second piece then is around the selection of your vendor. Make very clear steps to ensure that you are with a vendor that has a very similar DNA or cultural fit to your company, or that you at least understand that company's DNA so that you can interact at every level, whether or not it's at a technologist level, right the way up to the CIO and the and board members, with that group, to ensure that you've got open communication paths. I hate to say it, but make sure that your contract mechanism has got the flexibility in there, and that you're not locking yourself into something for multiple years without an exit path, or without knowing that you're doing that and consciously taking that decision for cost benefits. It sounds a little strange to say that at the outset, But understanding where your flexibility is and where you need that, I think is critical. And as you step through that, my advice is make sure that you've actually got a vendor who can be flexible, and that's built in terms of the volume, the types of services, and that they've got a track record of innovating with their clients, because there's nothing like change. And boy, are we in a period of change. I can't even think about predicting what's going to be happening in 3 years' time, never mind 5 years' time. So, having that flexibility there is critically important. And then during that, take up or the transformational piece, pay a lot of attention to the human change component if you've not been used to consuming managed services and outsourced services within your organization. You're going to have to give some thought to how you transition your staff, how you get your staff to change what they're doing and possibly their behaviors, and provide them with the opportunity for training and coaching to help them get through that. And then I think finally, once you're in that journey, make sure that you stay engaged. You monitor the quality of the services and stay engaged with your particular partner through that governance piece. This isn't fire and forget. This takes a partnership from both sides to have a successful, if I can use the marriage analogy again, long-lasting relationship. So it takes time and effort to keep that going, keep it on track, keep it fresh, vibrant, and to ensure that you're delivering quality services to your own internal users.
Now, we'll conclude with some added thoughts and advice from our expert. In this report, we took a close look at the evolution and emerging trends in managed services. We discussed the impact MSPs can have on enterprise IT and identified the challenges IT organizations may face when moving toward a managed services environment. We then offered best practices for organizations to follow when working with an MSP. Now, let's conclude with some added thoughts and advice from our expert. David, look down the road a bit and tell us your thoughts on the future of managed services.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pace of change here. I said 3 years ago that security services in the cloud was going to be one of the big uptakes, and how true that has been. So, I think the cloud delivery model, a hybrid delivery model where workload is placed on client premises, perhaps in a vendor premises, and in the kind of the third party, the Azures, the IBMs, Rackspace have pulled out of there, the Amazon type of and Google spaces. That is going to be with us to go forward. So the pace of change on those will continue to move forward. I think you will see more vendors that are willing to offer services across all of those platforms coming to market, and they'll be doing those in a more consumption-based model to allow that variability and that flexibility that I've talked about previously. So I think those are the key elements. When you look at what is going on with mobility, crowdsourcing, big data. Those clearly are all going to have a part to play here in terms of how businesses transform themselves and deliver quality and revenue.
Okay, David, a final thought for our viewers?
Embrace it. Every organization, however large, there is probably a niche part of a large delivery organization that they just don't have the time, they don't have the skills to be able to take this forward. So get in, test the water, put your toe in the water if you want, and learn how to use managed services as part of your own IT organization as an extension to help you through with whatever issue that you're experiencing. Don't be afraid. Don't be ignorant.
David Leech, Vice President of Professional and Managed Services for Logicalis US. Thank you for sharing such great information with us today.
Well, it's my pleasure, and hopefully that's been used to you and to your audience. Thank you.
That completes our report, The Evolution of Managed Services. I'm Michael Quinlan, and thanks for watching.